It's time for spelling analysis. Are you ready? All right, the first word is claws. The cat has long claws. Go ahead and say claws. Let's sound it out. K. Use a k, s, l, ah, two-letter ah that you may use at the end of English words. Z. Go ahead and write claws. And that's a z. You're right because it's plural. All right, claws. Sound it out as you write it. And help me to write it. K, l, ah, z. Good. And how will we mark it? We'll underline the ah. And what sound does z do here? The second. Let's read it. K, l, ah, z. Claws. The next word is neighbor. Our neighbor is very nice. Neighbor. Go ahead and say neighbor. How many syllables in neighbor? Two. We will say to spell neighbor. What will we say to spell? Neighbor. All right, let's sound it out. The first syllable is neigh. N-A. Do you see that? The second syllable is bore. B-or. Go ahead and write neighbor. Good. And help me to write it. The first syllable is neigh. N-A. The second syllable is bore. B-or. And how will we mark it? We'll underline the A and the or. Let's read it. N-A-B-or. Neighbor. Notice that said its schwa sound, in an unstressed syllable. Neighbor. The next word is idea. I have an idea. Idea. Go ahead and say idea. How many syllables? Three. We will say to spell I-D-A. What will we say to spell? I-D-A. All right, the first syllable is I. I, use an I-E. The second syllable is D. D-E. The third syllable is aw. Aw. That's an a-a-aw. Go ahead and write I-D-A. Good. And help me to write it. The first syllable is I. The second syllable is D. D-E. The third syllable is aw. Aw. How will we mark it? Put a line over the I. And why did the I say its long sound? I and Y may say I or I at the end of the syllable. Put a line over the E. Why did the E say E? A, E, O, U usually say their long sounds at the end of the syllable. And the A is saying its broad sound. Why? Because it usually says its broad sound at the end of the word. Let's read it. I-D-E-A, idea. The next room is tidy. Let's tidy up the room. Tidy. Go ahead and say tidy. How many syllables? Two. We will say to spell tie-D. What will we say to spell? Tie-D. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is tie. T-I. Use an I-E. The third syllable is D. D-E. You're right. It's a ya, I-E. Go ahead and write tie-D. Good. And help me to write it. The first syllable is tie. T-I. The second syllable is D. D-E. How will we mark it? We'll put a line over the I. I and Y may say I or I at the end of the syllable. And we'll put a 4 over the E. It's saying its E sound at the end of a multi-syllable word. Let's read it. T-I-D-E. Tidy. The next word is twirl. She likes to twirl. Twirl. Go ahead and say twirl. Let's sound it out. T-w-er. The of first. L. Twirl. Go ahead and write twirl. Or it's the of girl. Go ahead and write twirl. All right, help me to write it. T-w-er-l. And that's right, we've been calling it the of bird. I've had so many classes that I've taught that teach it in different ways. So let's go ahead and underline the of bird. Let's read it. T-w-er-l. Twirl. Excellent. The next word is dropped. I accidentally dropped a glass. Dropped. Go ahead and say dropped. What is the root word of dropped? Today I drop. Yesterday I dropped. So let's sound out drop first. D, p. Oh, did you hear the vowel and then the consonant? And we're adding the past tense ending, edit, which begins with the vowel. So what do we need to do? We need to double the p and then t, edit. Let's sound it out one more time. D, p, t. Dropped. You've got it. Go ahead and write it. Excellent. And help me to write it. D, p. And we'll stop here for just a moment. Notice it ends in one vowel followed by one consonant, and we're adding a vowel suffix. So what do? We double the consonant and then add the suffix. All right. So what sound of edit do you hear in dropped? The third t. Let's read it. Dropped. The next word is paw. The dog handed me his paw. Paw. Go ahead and say paw. P-aw. That's right. Two-letter aw that you may use at the end of English words. Go ahead and write paw. And help me to write it. P-aw. How do we mark it? We'll underline the aw. The last word is exclaimed. She exclaimed, "That is a great idea." Exclaimed. Go ahead and say exclaimed. How many syllables in exclaimed? 2. We will say to spell X, claimed. What will we say to spell? X, claimed. Let's sound it out. X, X. The second syllable is claimed. K, use a K, S. L, A, two-letter A that you may not use at the end of English words. D. Exclaimed. You've got it, and you're right. It's an edit. Exclaimed. Good. And help me to write it. The first syllable is X. X. The second syllable is claimed. K-L-A-M-D. Very good. How do you mark it? We'll underline the A, and we'll underline the D. Exclaimed. Edit. It's at its second sound. Let's read it. Exclaimed. Exclaimed. Great. Great work today.
Combining the science of reading with the joy of learning. Learn more at foundations.logicofenglish.com.